Nikki Hembo here. It is a delight for me to bring back Dominique Foxworth. It has been much too long since we have seen Neek, and there he is. And Hembo has called you out. Here's the question. Which quarterback has thrown the most touchdowns in a season when Bruce Arians was either his head coach or offensive coordinator?
Man, he's really coached the who's who of quarterbacks, but I'm going to go with Ben Roethlisberger when he was the coordinator there with the Steelers, maybe, or Carson Palmer is what I was going to say. That's who I was really thinking.
I wasn't sure if you'd be able to see the answer or not, which is Carson Palmer. Brady has thrown that many 4 times in his career. And that, of course, brings us to Tom Brady. As the world knows, he is on his way to Tampa Bay. The deal is still not officially done, but it should be that much closer to completion after the quarterback underwent a physical with a mutually agreed upon doctor in New York yesterday. The coronavirus, as we all know, is preventing Brady and other free agents from meetings with teams in person and thus taking physicals with team physicians. But Shefty told us right off the top that this feels as though it is essentially done, and we're just waiting for Brady himself to post news that it is all officially done. So, Nick, I've not had a chance to talk to you. I want to ask you this question. What is the ceiling in your mind for Brady and the Bucs this year? Specifically, I'd like to know, do you think this is a team that could go to the Super Bowl?
I think they absolutely could go to the Super Bowl. We saw what Tom Brady looked like when he had one good receiver. He's going to have 2 good receivers, a very good defense that I'm sure will be relieved not to have to defend a short field because of turnovers this year. I think the sky's the limit for this team. They can certainly win the NFC. I'm not sure that they'll be the favorites necessarily, but I wouldn't be surprised if they win that division and end up facing Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, which will give us a matchup of, ironically, or not ironically, but interestingly, 2 of the best young offensive coordinators in football, and Eric Bieniemy and Byron Leftwich, who is now entrusted with the GOAT. So I'm looking forward to this season for Brady and most of all for Byron Leftwich to see what he can do with that offense down there.
Very quickly, we opened the show this morning talking about the possibility of bringing another piece in there. We hear a lot of guys want to go down to Tampa and play with him. Julian Edelman, of course, long his favorite receiver, maybe Antonio Brown. You were a defensive back. Give me a sense of what it would be like. Do you think that they need to add one or those guys or a piece like those?
They absolutely don't need to, but if I had to choose between those 2, it's crazy. It may sound crazy because Antonio Brown is much better than Julian Edelman, but I'd rather have Julian Edelman in that situation. I'm not sure that AB is worth the headache at this point, and we're not even sure if he can play right away. So I think Edelman is the guy to come down there. I know Dan earlier today talked about how Edelman is a guy who could help teach the offense to the rest of the guys, which is important in this offseason that we're not sure what's going to happen. And he's a trusted guy, and I'm not sure that he would necessarily be as interested in getting his numbers in the same way that you would expect a guy like AB would. I don't think that Tom Brady is a big AB fan, as everyone seems to think he is. He was when he didn't have receivers. It was a conditional love. Now he has 2 number 1 caliber receivers. It's not unconditional love what he has for AB.
That is well put. Now, speaking of unconditional love, you are the president of Dak Prescott's fan club. I want you to hear something Stephen A. Smith said earlier this week about the notion of Dak getting the franchise tag and what he should do now. This was Stephen A.
If I were Dak Prescott, my initial response is that I would plan on sitting out the season. You're not making a long-term commitment to me. Essentially, this is tantamount to a 1-year deal. You're asking me to go out there and play on a 1-year deal after the years of service that I've given you. 4 years, never missed a game, missed 1 practice. That made back page news, considering this dysfunctional environment that historically has been the Dallas Cowboys. The quarterback position for America's team is not just about throwing the football. It's about being that quintessential leader.
So there you hear it. Dominique, he is saying that Dak Prescott should be prepared to sit out the season. What do you think?
You know how I feel about Dak Prescott, so I would completely support him if that's what he did. But given the position that he's in, I would say he shouldn't sit out. He should keep balling. He's gotten better every year and keep doing that, because if he plays this year on the franchise, I would refuse to sign an extension and play a following year on the franchise and then hit the open market. I know that's a long way away and there's a lot of ifs and kind of maybes, but Dak Prescott has stayed healthy. You can't bet on that in this sport, but I would count on him. If I were him, I would bet on myself to try to get to true free agency, because the money that he could make in true free agency and the opportunity to pick where he wants to go. It'd be the first time since choosing what school you go to get an opportunity to pick where you can go. And I think Dak would get big bucks if he was on the free agent market and get to go to a team that he felt like maybe respected him and appreciated his talents more than it seems Dallas is showing right now.
If you look at the example, we've seen this happen once before, and it's Kirk Cousins. And he is a guy who has made so much money. It's unimaginable. And Dak, I think at this point, is trending towards being much more accomplished at a similar circumstance than Cousins was. So that is taking a risk, though. If they offer you a little bit less, a little bird in the hand there, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. All right, while we have you, Neek, I want to do something that hopefully will make all of us feel very familiar. Roll the open.
I don't know the question you were trying to ask. Be better tomorrow.
I'm not answering this. That's a clown question, bro.
Next. Mike, why are you in such a bad mood? What do you care?
What else do you want to know?
Next question.
Your next question.
Next question.
Basic team.
Next question.
I'm not going to answer any questions from you.
Answer my question! The question, jerk!
With Matt Nagy, and I think they brought him in order to take this job. I think anyone who's saying that he's coming in there to compete, while I think that's true, maybe Mitchell could win the job back, but I think right now, Nick Foles is the front runner. The only way that I see Mitchell Trubisky being the starter of this team midway through the season or towards the end of the season is if something happens to Nick Foles, and he has had some injury issues, especially recently coming off that broken clavicle. I imagine something like that could happen, but that's the only way I imagine Mitchell Trubisky getting his starting job back, because I think it's Nick Foles to lose at this point.
All right, I'm going to remember the way you questioned that question midway through this season when Mitchell Trubisky is stunning the world and playing great. Next one, last one for you here. Derrick Henry got the franchise tag in Tennessee. What would you advise him to do about it?
Yeah, I think Derrick Henry shouldn't show up. What Stephen A. was saying about Dak, I think is even more true for Derrick Henry and most running backs. Like, it feels like the running backs need to build a union inside the union where they can all collectively flex their muscle, because what's happening to them is unfair. And what's happening to Derrick Henry is not fair. He is the best player on that offense and one of the best players in this league. And they are obviously positioning themselves to franchise him this year and maybe franchise him again next year and then send him out on the open market. I imagine what he should do is go into the Le'Veon Bell playbook and just not show up. Not show up. That's not a holdout. Just don't sign your franchise tag and force them to release you or trade you or something at the end of this season. Because I think coming off what he did in the playoffs last year, any team who is close to winning a Super Bowl, I think they'd be more than willing to overpay Derrick Henry for a couple of seasons rather than him try to wait it out and hope that the Titans pay him, because they aren't going to pay him.
All right, Dominic, that's well done. Stay with me. I have some breaking news here, and this is not a surprise, but it is indeed now official. Breaking news into our newsroom at ESPN. Tom Brady is officially a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. We had been waiting for things to happen that felt essentially like a formality or a series of formalities. Those things have now been done. Jeff Darlington has been all over this story from the very beginning. Jeff, what can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you, Greeny, that Tom Brady took a physical in New York City yesterday, where he is currently residing before he makes his move down to Tampa Bay, and everything is full go. The contract is signed. Tom Brady now officially a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, so those had been the holdups. It was just a matter of the physical. Were there any issues in working out the deal? Because this is such an unusual offseason. Was it as simple as just finding some way to get a physical done under these extraordinary circumstances?
Right, and all along, the Bucs and Brady were on the same page as far as everything that I was understanding the whole time. There was no real hang-up in terms of the contract itself. It was about finding a doctor. The Bucs would have preferred to use one of their doctors, but certainly understanding the situation and really wanting to get this formalized, not push it too far down the road. They found someone they could both agree upon. Again, there was no tension in that regard at all. And when it came to the contract itself, quite frankly, it was pretty easy for everybody to get done. Brady wasn't trying to leverage a bunch of teams to try to drive up the price. It was pretty clear and simple. And in fact, the original offer that came through was pretty close, from what I understand, and we'll get you some numbers soon, to what he ended up signing. So a situation where everybody was on the same page this whole time. For Tom Brady, it was ultimately about getting some sunshine and throwing some touchdowns.
And so it is a done deal. Tom Brady is officially a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. And we will have one of his new teammates, officially one of his new teammates, alive with us in a moment to react. What will it be like to have TB in TB? We'll ask that question next. You're watching Get Up on ESPN.